Hockey, yeah.
My favorite.
It's Judd's Hockey Show.
And welcome into Judd's Hockey Show, a Monday version of the show. It's Judd, AJ Fredrickson, co-hosting and producing extraordinarily as he always does. The full-strength show with Jesse Pierce will be recorded tomorrow, but we wanted to jump on because, you know what? The Wild just continues to pile up points, 5 points, 5 of possible 6 on a road trip that ended with an overtime loss in Chicago on Sunday. Plenty to get to specifically about that game and something that I think AJ and I both absolutely loved. But first, a quick shout out to the exclusive personal injury law firm of Judd's Hockey Show. Those are our friends at Nicolay Law. Nicolay Law knows that when you or a loved one gets injured, ordinary life, it can come to a stop and things can get complicated. But guess what? Russ Nicolay and his team right there, they're to the rescue during that time. Insurance companies likely to pressure you. They don't care if you get better. They don't care if your medical bills are piling up. And they don't care that you may not be able to work. But Nicolay Law does. They've seen every play the insurance companies have, and they'll make sure you get the compensation you deserve after an accident. So if you've been injured, get Minnesota's local award-winning injury lawyers. Get Nicolay. Start your path to winning at nicolaylaw.com or give them a call. 1-855-NICOLAY, nicolaylaw.com. That's NICOLET. And Russ and his team will make sure that you are taken care of. Speaking of taking care of business, the Wild goes on a 3-game trip, Age.
Yes.
They beat the Sharks. Sharks are bad, but you got to win against bad teams on the road.
Mm-hmm.
They beat the Ducks. Ducks are bad, but you got to win against bad teams on the road. Mm-hmm. Then to end the trip, they fly into Chicago on Saturday night. About 12 hours after that, they go against the Blackhawks team that is not good, probably improving, fair to say. Peter Mrazek, the Blackhawks goaltender, stands on his head in the third period after the Wild was pretty doggone lethargic for 2 periods. But nonetheless now, with the OT loss and the 2 wins, the Wild are 7-1-2 on the road trip, or on the road. They were 2-0-1 on the trip. They are 10-2-3 overall in second place because the Winnipeg Jets are an absolute wagon. It's absolutely crazy, Age. But let's talk about what we saw last night, which was, I think, something that we would complain on occasion that Dean Evason wouldn't do. And this was the most that John Hynes has done this. But starting in the second period, knowing his team was lethargic, tired, not playing particularly well, he started to juggle lines like a madman. Now, if you do that all the time, I do get like, come on, right? Like if a line's going well, let's let it gel. Let's not. But in this case, absolutely the right thing, Age. And it worked to the point of where he had a line that with about 4:30 or so left in the third period, Boldy, Zuccarello, and Kaprizov got the game tying goal to eventually force OT. This is one thing, though, where when folks ask, does coaching make a difference? Last night, coaching made a difference in getting a point in Chicago.
Yeah, this was, was it kind of a sour end to a road trip where I think 6 of 6 points were very possible? Yes. The Blackhawks are a bad team. Clearly the Wild were tired. I think they've shown that their bar, even when tired, is higher than what the Blackhawks should offer normally on most nights. So it is a little bit of a buzzkill, but they do get that goal late. They get the extra point. When it comes to just actually like you talked about, the line combinations. Last night, Kirill Kaprizov led all forwards for the Wild with 25:02 of time on ice.
It's incredible.
Just incredible. When you look at it, though, in terms of line combinations, you'd expect with him being out on the ice that much, he's on a line that probably had the most time on ice together. That is not the case. The line with the most time on ice last night was Jakub Lauko, Merit Husnadinov, and Yakov Trenin with 7 minutes and 26 seconds of time on ice. Kaprizov, Rossi, Zuccarello, 7 minutes and 17 seconds. And you might be thinking, well, how is that possible, AJ? How is that possible?
Yeah, I don't understand, Age.
It's because there were 28 different line combinations for the Minnesota Wild. And granted, some of these, Foligno, Rossi, and Zuccarello, they were out on the ice together for a total of 10 seconds. So that does inflate the number a little bit. But mixing, matching, juggling, combinations left and right. John Hynes, he is unsettled. He will not rest at just, you three, you three, you three, you three. You better get comfortable playing with anybody and everybody, Judd. John Hynes does not care who's friends, who's not. He's looking for solutions late in games. That is promising. That is something we had not seen under the previous regime under Dean Evison. This is refreshing. I love that he's trying to kickstart something late, recognizing, like you said, there is an issue. This team is lethargic. It was a very rough first 40 minutes.
Yep.
They had a stretch, I want to say, of 10 minutes in the third where they were doing everything but scoring in the offensive zone. So this was a nice change of pace, and credit to John Hynes, who I think after the appointment last season, most of the offseason, I was skeptical. I wasn't sure he was the correct guy. This is a massive step in the right direction to fully winning me over. He shows that I love a reactionary coach. You cannot get too complacent in the NHL. That's how you lose. He got reactionary. They get a point. They still lose in overtime, but you get a point.
Yeah, and this is one too, and Hines' post-game comments were reflective of this. He wasn't mad. Like, this was the end of a trip in which this team was gassed, right? And so this was not a punishment. Like, this was not oh my God, my top three lines are playing like crap. That will come, it's a long year. This, though, was a response to how can I wake my team up because they're tired?
Yeah.
Well, what better way than to shuffle lines and force guys because, John Hynes or an assistant coach is calling the lines out next that are on the bench. You got to be on your toes. It's like a shot of espresso, right? Because you're tired, you take a shot of, a drink, and by that I do not mean an alcoholic drink, an energy drink, a coffee, and so you've got to be on your toes. And what I also love, though, in the third is, and this is what we called for this, and I guess I was skeptical, but it happened. Boldy, who is turning into a superstar.
Yes.
Star player right now, but I believe he's on pace for 49 goals. Kaprizov, Zuccarello. How about that? And so Boldy is the center by default. But I mean, how many times did we say, okay, if things aren't going well, like the Zuccarello Kaprizov thing is fine, but if it does not going well, and sure enough, he split those two up, he put them back together. But I love that, and I'm not comparing these players exactly, but to me, putting Kaprizov and Boldy as line mates in a situation like that age is the McDavid-Draisaitl philosophy, which is you're not going to play together all of the time, but if I need a jolt, if we need a goal, you sure are. So the whole game, John Hynes, bravo. The management of that game, to me, that's coaching. That is coaching. Yes, it's one game, but you got a point, division foe. Just really impressive. Just really, really impressive.
Yeah, and that goes to show just how hard it is, because it's so easy to sit on the couch at home and be like, hey, guys, let's spice it up a little bit. He's actively taking measures to do that. And you mentioned Matt Boldy and his play. This is a quick stat dump that the friends over at Big Head Hockey on Twitter posted earlier today about Matt Boldy so far this season. 15 games. He has 9 goals. That's good for a 49-goal pace, 16 points. He's a +5. 54 shots. That's 13th most in the NHL right now. He's shooting the puck more, Judd. And he's on the 7th best forward line in the NHL via expected goals for percentage with a minimum of 120 minutes on ice. That's with a guy that we heavily have ragged on here for the past year with Marcus Johansson. Matt Boldy is elevating that. And so having that kind of that trick in the bottom of the bag with late in games when you need to do something, of putting him on a line with Kaprizov, putting those two guys together. I mean, obviously that's putting your chips, your eggs in one basket most of the time, but in certain situations, that's what you have to do. And they generate a lot of offense when you make that happen.
And speaking of being critical of a player, I mean, Matt Boldy, this is why last year it drove me crazy, and he didn't do it consistently, but when he would, and he did in Chicago, when he would mail in games, it's like you are way too good. And I've seen way too many of your, Charlie Coyle was always a better player than he consistently showed here, right?
And he showed that now in Boston.
Yes, exactly. But the point is, you shouldn't have to leave to show that. And Boldy, it's like he would at times scratch the surface, but then he would sort of regress back. And it's like, no, you are I would consider him right now to be a star player, or at least on the precipice. Like, Kaprizov is a superstar. He's in another, but when you look at what Boldy is doing, I think the stat is in his last 11 games, he has 7 goals and 11 points. To what you just said, he's shooting the puck now. He's doing what he should do. He is, from reading the stories today, it sounds like he's actually being very vocal and calling for the puck. And so, like, he is maturing as a player, but the best part is he's maturing into the player he consistently should be. That's how you make the playoffs. That's how you win playoff games. So there is, I mean, this is as, and I hope I don't pay for this, but this is as high on the Wild. Like, I love where I didn't think it would come yet, but with the way that they're being coached, with the way that Hynes is very even keel, there's not a lot of ups and downs and the roller coaster of hockey emotions that I'm guilty of, but he's very centered. He knows what he wants. To your point, he's not a BSer. He's going to give you what he thinks he should. Gustafsson has continued to surprise me. And you can say, well, yeah, they beat the Sharks and Ducks, and they're supposed to. Well, yes, they are. How many times have we seen this very team or franchise go on that trip and not do what they should do? And they stumble on themselves in San Jose, and then they might come back and beat the Ducks. And in both of those games, they at some point in time took control and just said, okay, this game's done. It's impressive. It's impressive, and I like just about everything that I have seen. And the last thing, too, is, last night, the one line that doesn't get juggled, doesn't get toyed with, is that fourth line. Mm-hmm. And Trent and I think on this trip at least showed a pulse.
Yes, he's definitely risen, and you know what else has shown a little bit of a pulse? And granted, like you said, it's bad teams, but you're also on the road. The penalty kill showed a little life on this road trip, Judd. I know we probably are going to dig into that more tomorrow with Jesse, but if my memory serves correct, it was perfect. And that was a night where you had 3 penalties taken against the Sharks last Thursday. I think there was 4 or 5 against the Ducks on Friday night. And last night in Chicago, I want to say it was 2 or 3. I know you had 2 in the first period, pretty much back-to-back, those a high sticking and then a hooking or tripping call or something along those lines. But it was, I don't know if it's changed or if they just matched up well against those 3 set of teams that they played, but it looked like they were defending a lot better. It looked like they were pressuring the puck carrier a little bit more, and that's something we had been asking for. And lo and behold, when you apply pressure, we're not creating diamonds here. We're stopping scoring chances, and you're perfect on the penalty kill for that 3-game road trip. So I was very pleased with how special teams, defensively at least, performed over the last couple of nights.
Quick question: What are the advanced metrics at least showing about Johansson's play? Because he's not getting a ton of points, but I feel like he's not killing them. If that and to your point about the line's age, that seems to speak to that. So it's not like he's popping up and giving you unbelievable production.
Yeah.
But it also feels like, and this is just an eye test thing, that he's not being a negative, which at times he clearly was last year. What do they say about Marcus Johansson?
So right now he's got those 5 points so far, 3 points so far this season. He's got 1.7 expected goals compared to the 1 that he has. When it comes to defensively, I mean, he's taking more penalties than he is drawing them, which is a hassle. But at the same time, he's getting a little unlucky because he's had chances. And granted, I think we just know that that's the player that he kind of is. He doesn't have that finishing ability that maybe Matt Boldy
feels like he's working harder, I guess, is the one thing that I think I'm seeing. Which isn't saying a lot. That's faint praise.
I think you're right. But what I will say is that when he is shooting, he's being very selective, it feels like, about his shooting chances, because his shooting percentage on unblocked shots is 25%, and his shooting percentage on unblocked shots above expected is 16.7. So when he does find a spot where there's nobody in front of him, he's finding the back of the net. And granted, he does have the one goal. He's being very selective overall about his shooting. So his on ice shot attempt, so his Corsi plus is 51%. It's fine. Like, it's good.
Yeah.
Like you said, he's working harder. He's not killing them, which is, I think, the biggest thing, just because solely he's getting to those dirtier areas and he's being more physical, which last season it was shying away. Okay, I'm going to maybe, instead of pinching in deep, I'm going to sit along the half wall and hopefully they just throw it into my body. He's playing a dirtier game in a good sense. Like, he's coming out probably with some more bumps and bruises, but for the betterment of the team, which I fully commend.
Yeah, and if you're going to play with Eck and the way that Boldy has been going too, if you don't play hard, it's going to become glaringly obvious. And to the Boldy point, the fact that he is shooting more probably helps. Because if my choice is Boldy can shoot or Johansson can shoot, give me Boldy 10 out of 10 times. And look, I'm hoping that at some point in time, Ogren fits in there. Like, he was not called up, which I do agree with. If he's not going to play, then he shouldn't be, I don't want him back here until he's going to play. And I would prefer that once that takes place, that he's like at the lowest, a third line guy. I mean, at the best, if he thrives and replace Johansson, I certainly would not complain. But yeah, it feels like everybody, this is probably the most important statement I can make. It feels like everybody got the memo this year. That there is a standard. That there is now a standard. And this, we don't have Billy's got to go get an enforcer because the team has got no personality. It feels like that is sort of gone now, which is huge. And everybody who needs to pull their weight is, like, Spurgeon made the bad play in OT last night, but the one that he made in a week ago Sunday against the Leafs with the OT pass was incredible. And no one's ever going to question Spurgeon's work. Like, he's going to make some, bad plays. They all are. But no one's going to question him. So it just feels like everybody has gotten the memo of what the standard is. And I don't know that I could have said that for the last few seasons.
One last quick note here on maybe this kind of puts a bow on John Hynes coaching and Marcus Johansson situation.
Okay.
In terms of like where he's starting his shift, they're able to track this, whether it starts in the offensive zone, neutral zone, defensive zone. In neutral zone is more than likely you're coming off the bench. It's a change up ice, transitioning. So you're not necessarily getting thrown out there for either a defensive draw or a offensive draw. Like, that's just, frankly, you're kind of a middle of the road guy. When it comes to percent of shifts started in the offensive zone, Matt Zuccarello by far leads the team with 31.8%. If we go down, Marcus Johansson ranks 8th. Well, it's tied for 8th with Jake Middleton, 11%. He's starting 22.8% of his shifts in the neutral zone with a face-off, so offside, neutral ice, whatever.
Sure.
More so, he's starting in the defensive zone. 2.5% higher of shifts start in the defensive zone. So they're trusting him more defensively, whereas, just for reference, Matt Zuccarello, who I just mentioned, 6.4% of his shifts start in the defensive zone. So just, you can see what John Hynes is doing there, putting out who he's maybe trusting a little bit more. Joel Eriksson Ek is probably the most well-spread guy here. 17.6% of his shifts face-off offensive zone, 19.5 in the defensive zone, and then 24.2 start in the neutral.
Yeah, and to Trenton for a second, it's no accident that Hynes met with him, I think, as the road trip started. And then all of a sudden, and look, he's probably, in fairness, that this is not an ideal statement, but he's probably a fourth line guy. Like, he's probably suited best to be on the fourth line because he's so slow. But that being said, I don't think it's an accident that Hynes, who championed Trenton being signed here, met with him, and all of a sudden the play starts to pick up. And I don't know if that's confidence. I don't know if that's engagement in the game, but Hynes is pushing the right buttons, and it just feels like it's been a long time. And look, his record when he took over last year was pretty good. I don't know if I ever saw, because there was a whole training camp this time, AJ. I don't know that if I ever felt like I did about his coaching last season like I do right now.
Yeah, I feel much more confident with John Hynes being on the bench through this first 10, 15 games than I did by the end of the season last year, at any point last year. He's made, I think, me, and I would assume, if I feel like I have a pretty rational thinking of what a lot of fans also do as well. And if I feel better, I feel like a lot of other fans probably do too. It's hard to just immediately buy in. It's not like, it's not like the family dog where immediately everybody in the household's on board, blah, blah, blah.
Really? I'm not the dogs. I'm like,
I think it depends. If you're an adult, maybe you're a little more skeptical, especially if it's not.
I like Stella now, but I mean, when she came on, I'm like, I don't know. But yeah.
Yeah. He's definitely grown on me more. And it's a lot of this analytical, strategic approach that maybe just we didn't see under Dean Evison. So he's growing on me a lot.
Yep. Exactly. You know what, Age?
What's
I
that?
am checking out online right now, and I am checking out the menu at Parlor Bar in St. Paul.
Oh, we gonna go get some lunch here or what?
Well, the Parlor burger, by the way, top notch. The chicken sandwich as well. Dawn and I were there a couple of weeks ago before the Gophers St. Thomas game. Also outstanding. And Parlor in St. Paul, the perfect spot before a Wild game as well. Located on West 7th in St. Paul. Open Monday and Tuesday from 4 to 10 p.m. and Wednesday through Sunday from 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. How about lunch? 11 to 3 Wednesday through Friday. Or stop in for brunch, which I personally love on the weekends. Game day fans, there's also, before Wild games, a special menu that rolls out 3 hours before face-off. Contact Parlor Bar, the website, and if you do, you can look at this delicious menu, parlorbar.com. That's parlorbar.com. And don't forget, before your next trip to a Wild game, West 7th, Parlor Bar, the burger, outstanding. Chicken sandwich, I'm telling you, underrated.
Well, the chicken sandwich is like the litmus test for a lot of these places, because if you mess up a chicken sandwich, it's not great. It should be mediocre at best. I've had the Parlor chicken sandwich because it's a safe bet all the time. Raises the bar. Expectations blown out the water.
Exactly right. So stop in and tell them that Sports Dad and AJ told you to try out the chicken sandwich, Parlor Bar. Back tomorrow with Jesse Pierce and more discussion about this red hot hockey team. Talk about a wagon. The Wild's a wagon right now.